The hospital room smelled like cleaning chemicals and fear. My eyes opened slowly, fighting against the heavy fog of anesthesia. Everything felt distant and blurry, like I was underwater. The pain in my lower back was sharp and angry, reminding me that they had just cut me open and rearranged my spine. I tried to move my fingers first, then my toes, making sure everything still worked. That's when I saw him. Mark was sitting in the blue plastic chair beside my bed, but he wasn't holding my hand. He wasn't even looking at me with concern. Instead, he was holding a large manila envelope, the kind lawyers use for important documents. His face was blank, almost bored. "You're awake," he said flatly. There was no warmth in his voice, no relief that I had survived a risky surgery. He didn't ask if I was in pain or if I needed anything. He just reached over and placed that envelope on my lap, right on top of my thin hospital gown. My brain was still fuzzy from the drugs, but I could feel something terrible coming. "I'm leaving, Brooke," Mark said, his words cutting through the beeping of my heart monitor. "I found my soulmate, and I can't waste another day pretending that taking care of a broken version of you is my destiny." The words hit me harder than any physical pain. Broken version? Soulmate? I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. We had been married for 12 years. 12 years of building a life together, of supporting each other through everything. I had just come out of major spinal surgery, the kind where they actually move your organs around to reach your spine. I was hooked up to machines, barely able to speak, and this was the moment he chose? My throat was raw from the breathing tube they had shoved down during surgery. I tried to speak, but only a weak whisper came out. "What?" He stood up, brushing invisible dust off his expensive designer blazer. The one I had bought him last Christmas. "The papers are in the envelope. My lawyer already filed them yesterday. While you were in surgery, actually. Seemed like good timing." Before we continue, I would like to know where you're watching from in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button and share this video, as this will help this video to travel far so others can learn also. Let me back up and tell you who I am. My name is Brooke Chen, and I'm a senior project manager at Henderson Construction, one of the top 3 construction firms in the state. I manage budgets that have more zeros than most people see in their lifetime. I'm the person they call when a $20 million project is going off the rails. I fix problems for a living. For the past 10 years, I've been the main breadwinner in our marriage. Mark always had big dreams of being a famous architect, the kind who designs buildings that end up in magazines. When we got married, he was still in graduate school. I paid for his master's degree in architecture. Every single tuition payment, every book, every supply came from my paycheck. Then, when he finally started his own firm, I funded the first 3 years of losses while he built his client base. I even co-signed the lease on his downtown office because his credit score was terrible. And now, here I was, fresh out of surgery that I had also paid for, and he was walking away. "Who is she?" I managed to croak out, my voice sounding like sandpaper. Mark actually smiled. Not a warm smile, but the kind of smile someone gets when they're thinking about something that makes them happy. Something that wasn't me. "Her name is Sienna," he said, and I could hear the way his voice changed when he said her name. Softer. Warmer. "She's an intern at my firm. 24 years old. She makes me feel alive again. Brooke. She makes me feel like I matter. You've been so focused on your career and your back problems that you forgot about me." I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I was too angry to let them fall. He was blaming me for having a medical condition? For working hard to support us? "Mark, I had surgery. I've been in pain for 2 years. "How is that?" He held up his hand, cutting me off. "I don't want to do this now. Everything you need to know is in those papers. I'll send someone for my stuff next week." And just like that, he walked out. I lay there in shock, staring at the envelope on my lap. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even open it. That's when Maria, my nurse, came in to check my vital signs. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and quick hands. She looked at the envelope, then at my tear-stained face, and her expression hardened. "That was your husband who just left, right?" she asked, wrapping the blood pressure cuff around my arm. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Maria shook her head in disgust. "I hate to be the one to tell you this, honey, but I saw him in the parking lot about 10 minutes before he came up here. There was a young girl waiting in his car. Long blonde hair. Yellow sundress. They were kissing and laughing like they were heading off on some romantic vacation. She paused, her jaw tight with anger. And I had just finished changing your surgical drainage bag. You were still unconscious, and he was out there with her. Something inside me shifted in that moment. The sadness and shock started to fade, replaced by something cold and sharp. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, my fingers clumsy with the 4 lines still in my hand. I opened our home security app, the one connected to all the cameras I had installed last year after our neighborhood had some break-ins. The app showed me a live feed of our house. What I saw made my blood run cold. Mark and Sienna were inside my house. Not just inside, they were actively packing things into boxes. I watched as Sienna picked up my grandmother's crystal vase, the one that had been passed down through 3 generations. This will look so pretty in our new apartment, her voice came through the camera speaker. Mark kissed her forehead, his hands on her waist. Anything you want, babe. It's all ours now. Brooke won't even notice half this stuff is gone. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I started recording video. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and did what I do best. I started making a mental list. Mark thought he was so clever, serving me divorce papers while I was helpless in a hospital bed. He thought he could just walk away with whatever he wanted, including a young girlfriend and my possessions. But he forgot something crucial. He forgot that I am a senior project manager. My entire job is built on details, documentation, and planning. I keep receipts for everything. I track every expense. I know where every dollar goes. And as I lay there, watching my husband and his mistress pack up my belongings, I started doing calculations. The luxury SUV they were loading boxes into? That was registered under my business LLC. The health insurance he was using for his heart condition? Provided by my employer, with me as the primary policyholder. His office downtown, the one with the big windows and modern furniture? I was the sole guarantor on that lease because his credit was too poor to qualify a loan. Everything he thought was his was actually mine. And I was about to teach him that lesson. I didn't waste time crying or calling my friends to complain. Instead, I called my lawyer, Vincent Park. Vince had handled some contract work for me over the years, and I trusted him completely. Vince, I said when he answered, my voice steady despite the morphine drip in my arm.
Mark just served me with divorce papers. In the hospital, right after my spinal surgery. And he's currently at our house with his girlfriend, packing up my belongings. There was a pause on the other end. Are you serious right now? Vince asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. Dead serious. And Vince, I have a question. What happens if I dissolve the subsidiary LLC that houses his architectural firm? Today. Another pause, longer this time. Brooke, if you do that, you would essentially be nuking his entire professional existence. His business license is tied to that LLC. His insurance, his contracts, everything. I looked down at my surgical scar, hidden under bandages and hospital gown. Good, I said. Start the countdown. The next morning, I woke up early despite the pain medication making me groggy. I had remembered something important. It was the last day of open enrollment for my company's benefits. Every year, we had a 2-week window to make changes to our health insurance, life insurance, and other benefits. And today was the final day. It felt like the universe was handing me a gift. I pulled out my laptop. Thank God I had asked my assistant to bring it yesterday and logged into my employee portal. There it was, the benefits section still open for changes. I clicked through the pages until I found the family coverage area. Mark's name was listed there under spouse coverage. I had been paying an extra $400 per month to keep him on my platinum tier insurance plan. The plan that covered his heart medication, his regular cardiology appointments, and his upcoming cardiac procedure. Mark had a condition called atrial fibrillation. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but it required monitoring and medication. And next month, he had a specialized cardiac ablation procedure scheduled. Without insurance, that procedure would cost him about $25,000 out of pocket. I moved my cursor to the Life Changes section. There was a drop-down menu with different options: marriage, birth of a child, death of a spouse, divorce, or legal separation. I clicked legal separation and confirmed the change. A box popped up warning me that this would remove my spouse from coverage immediately. I clicked confirm. Then I clicked submit. 3 clicks. That's all it took. I watched as the system processed my request, and within seconds, Mark's name disappeared from my policy. I took a screenshot of the confirmation page, showing the date, time, and change made. Then I closed my laptop and allowed myself a small smile. It was the first time I had smiled since waking up from surgery. My phone rang an hour later. It was Mark, and he sounded panicked. "Brooke, what the hell did you do? I just got an email from the insurance company saying my coverage has been terminated." I kept my voice calm and sweet. "Oh, Mark, you said you wanted to start a new life with your soulmate. I just assumed that included her taking care of your medical needs." While I had Mark on the phone, sputtering and cursing, I opened my laptop again. I pulled up the property management portal for the building where Mark's office was located. The lease was entirely in my name because, as I mentioned, Mark's credit was terrible when he started his firm 5 years ago. I had signed as the primary leaseholder and guarantor. Mark was just listed as an authorized occupant. I logged into my email and started composing a message to Gerald Henderson, the building's landlord. I had met Gerald several times at business events, and we had a cordial professional relationship. "Dear Mr. Henderson," I typed, "I am writing to inform you that I will not be renewing the lease for Suite 402 when it comes up next month. Furthermore, I would like to exercise the early termination clause outlined in Section 7.3 of our agreement, effective 30 days from today. Please send any associated penalties or fees to my personal account. Thank you for your understanding. Best regards, Brooke Chen." I attached a scanned copy of my identification and the original lease agreement, then hit send. The early termination penalty would cost me $3,000. It was worth every penny. My phone rang again 30 minutes later. This time it was Eleanor, Mark's mother. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Eleanor," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Brooke." Her voice was sharp and accusatory. "What do you think you're doing? Mark just called me in tears. He says you're canceling his insurance and kicking him out of his office. He has clients. You're going to ruin his reputation." I felt a flash of anger. Not once did Eleanor ask how I was doing. Not once did she acknowledge that her son had served me divorce papers the day after major surgery. Not once did she mention that he was cheating on me with a girl barely out of college. "Eleanor," I said slowly, "if Mark wanted security, he should have married a woman who wasn't recovering from spinal surgery. I'm just a broken woman trying to cut unnecessary expenses. His office lease is an unnecessary expense." She gasped. "You're being incredibly petty. This isn't like you." I laughed, a sound that surprised even me. "You're right. The old Brooke would have been understanding. She's dead now. Mark killed her yesterday." That night, alone in my hospital room with machines beeping around me, I did something I should have done months ago. I logged into our joint bank accounts and started going through every transaction from the past year. What I found made my stomach turn. Starting 8 months ago, there were regular transfers from our joint checking account to a business account labeled Sienna Miller Consulting. $5,000 each month, like clockwork. 8 transfers total. $40,000 of our money, my money, really, since I was the one earning it, had been funneled to Mark's girlfriend under the guise of consulting fees. I took screenshots of every single transaction. I downloaded the bank statements as PDFs. I created a spreadsheet documenting each transfer with dates and amounts. Then I emailed everything to Vince with a subject line that read, "Marital waste evidence." Vince responded within minutes. "This is golden. In our state, using marital funds to support an affair is considered dissipation of assets. We can demand reimbursement from his share of everything. He's going to walk away with nothing." I was discharged from the hospital on day 4. The doctor cleared me to leave, but warned me that I would need 6 weeks of careful recovery. No lifting anything over 5 pounds. No bending or twisting. Physical therapy 3 times a week. I had arranged for a medical transport van to take me somewhere, but it wasn't to my house. I had booked a room at the Riverside Recovery Suites, a boutique hotel that specialized in hosting people recovering from medical procedures. It had nursing staff on call, room service that catered to medical diets, and most importantly, it was a place where Mark couldn't find me. From my laptop in my hotel room, I accessed our smart home system. Our house had smart locks on all the doors, a smart garage door opener, and a gate control system. All of it was connected through an app on my phone. I systematically went through and changed every access code. Front door, back door, side door, garage, gate. Then, I went into the user management section and completely deleted Mark's access. He wasn't even listed as a guest anymore. He was simply gone from the system entirely.
That evening, I settled into my recovery suite with my laptop open and my phone nearby. I pulled up the Ring camera app and watched the live feed from our front door. Right on schedule, at 7 p.m., Mark's car pulled into the driveway. He was carrying pizza boxes, probably planning to have a romantic dinner with Sienna in what he still thought of as his house. I watched as he walked up to the front door and tried to press his thumb on the smart lock. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. He pulled out his phone, probably trying to open the door through the app, and I watched his face go from confused to angry. Then the rain started. It had been threatening all day, and now it came down in sheets. Mark started pounding on the door, his fist making dull thuds against the wood. "Brooke, open this door. Brooke, I know you're in there." He was screaming now, getting soaked. Sienna was sitting in the car, looking scared. I pressed the intercom button on the Ring app. "Mark," I said, my voice coming through the speaker by the door. "The house is being prepared for sale. Your belongings are boxed up at your mother's house." Mark's face appeared right in front of the camera, rain dripping off his nose. "You can't do this. My laptop is in there. I have a huge presentation tomorrow morning. I need my work files." I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. "Your laptop is in the box labeled, Mark's office items at Eleanor's house. You should have thought about this before you decided to serve me divorce papers in a hospital bed. Goodbye, Mark." I ended the intercom connection and watched as he continued to pound on the door for another 5 minutes before finally giving up. He and Sienna drove away, his tail lights disappearing into the rain. I took a screenshot of the footage showing him locked out and saved it to my evidence folder. You never know when these things might come in handy. Then I ordered room service, took my pain medication, and slept better than I had in months. Knowing that Mark was scrambling made my recovery just a little bit easier. The following Monday, I made a series of phone calls from my recovery suite. I had a list of Mark's 3 biggest clients, all of whom I had personally introduced him to over the years through my industry connections. These were men who ran large development companies, the kind of clients that could make or break an architectural firm. "Hi, Richard," I said when the first one answered. "This is Brooke Chen. I'm calling to give you a heads up about something that might affect your project with Mark." Richard Townsend was developing a luxury condo complex, and Mark was designing the main building. "Brooke, how are you? I heard you had surgery. How's the recovery going?" At least someone had manners. "Thank you for asking. I'm doing okay. But I wanted to let you know that Mark and I are separating, and due to some sudden lifestyle changes on his part, there may be some disruptions to his business operations. I wanted you to know so you could make alternative arrangements if needed." There was a pause. Lifestyle changes? What kind of disruptions? I kept my voice professional and concerned. I'd rather not go into details, but his office situation may be changing soon. By Monday afternoon, my email to Gerald Henderson had produced results. The building management had processed my termination notice and, according to the lease terms, had the right to immediately begin the transition process once early termination was invoked. I wasn't at the office building, but I had friends who were. My colleague Janet sent me a photo at 2 p.m. It showed Mark standing in the hallway outside his office suite, looking confused and angry, while 2 maintenance workers were changing the locks on his doors. In the background, I could see Richard Townsend and another client, David Park, standing there watching the whole scene. Janet's text read, "Your timing is incredible." His 2 biggest clients were here for a meeting when the locks started getting changed. They're not happy. I called Janet and asked her to do me a favor. "Can you casually mention to them that you heard Mark's business license and insurance might be in transition? Nothing specific, just plant that seed." She laughed. "Oh, honey. They already left. I heard Richard on the phone with another architect before he even got to the parking lot. My phone buzzed with an Instagram direct message notification. I didn't usually check Instagram. I barely posted on social media. But the preview showed it was from an account called Sienna_Designs. I opened it. "You're a psycho," the message read. "Mark told me you were understanding about the divorce, but you're just a bitter ex-wife who can't let go. We're in love, and we're going to be fine together. Mark is a genius architect, and he doesn't need you or your money. Stop trying to ruin his life just because you're jealous." I stared at the message for a long moment. This girl was 24 years old, barely out of college, and she thought she understood the situation. She had no idea what she'd gotten herself into. I typed back a single sentence. "A genius architect who currently has no office, no health insurance, and no income. Good luck with that morning sickness, sweetie." I hit send and then blocked her account. I didn't need her drama in my life. The following week, Vince called me with an update. "Brooke, I've prepared the response to Mark's divorce filing. But I also think we need to file a separate civil suit for the recovery of the money he gave to Sienna. In our state, that's considered dissipation of marital assets." I was in my hotel room, doing the physical therapy exercises my doctor had prescribed. "How much are we talking about?" Vince paused, and I could hear papers rustling. "Based on the bank transfers alone, $40,000. But I also want to include the value of the items he took from the house before you changed the locks. Based on your inventory list, we're looking at another $20,000 in personal property. And then there's the issue of him using the joint credit card to pay for a vacation rental for him and Sienna last month. That's another $8,000. He paused. "I think we should ask for full reimbursement plus punitive damages. We're talking about a total claim of around $150,000. I stopped mid-stretch. "Do we have a good case?" Vince laughed. "Brooke, with the evidence you've provided, we have an excellent case." Vince arranged for Mark to be served with the civil suit papers in the most public way possible. "It was purely strategic," Vince explained. "When you serve someone in a public place, especially somewhere professional, it sends a message to their peers and clients about the seriousness of the situation." The process server found Mark at a diner downtown, having lunch with Sienna. According to the process server's report, which Vince forwarded to me, Mark was sitting at a booth near the window when the server approached. "Mark Chen? You've been served," the server said, handing him the papers in front of a lunch crowd and his young girlfriend. Mark apparently turned white as he read through the complaint. The suit wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It was a separate civil action for the fraudulent transfer of marital funds, the theft of marital property, and emotional distress. The total amount I was seeking was $150,000, plus attorney's fees and court costs. Mark had assumed the divorce would be a simple 50-50 split of assets. He had forgotten about the evidence, the receipts, the paper trail that showed he'd been stealing from our marriage to fund his affair. 2 days after being served, Mark called me. He was crying, which was something I had never heard before in 12 years of marriage. "Brooke, please. We need to talk. This is getting out of hand." I was sitting in my recovery suite, finally off the strong pain medications and thinking more clearly. "What is it, Mark?" His voice cracked. "Sienna is pregnant. We're having a baby. Brooke, please, you can't sell the house. We need it. The baby needs a stable home. Think about the innocent child in all of this." I felt my heart skip a beat. Pregnant? A baby? For just a moment, a wave of emotion hit me. But then my logical brain kicked in. I remembered something from 3 years ago. Mark had come home from a doctor's appointment and casually mentioned that he'd had a vasectomy. He'd made the decision without really discussing it with me, saying he didn't want kids and that was that. I had been hurt at the time, but eventually accepted it. "Mark," I said slowly, "didn't you have a vasectomy 3 years ago?" There was a long silence on Mark's end of the phone. Then he said, "People can get reversals, Brooke. It's not that uncommon." But something in his voice sounded wrong. Uncertain. Like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. After I hung up, I called Vince. "I need you to hire a private investigator. I think Sienna might be lying about being pregnant." Vince didn't even question it. "I have someone I use regularly. His name is Dave Torres. He's discreet and thorough. What am I looking for? I explained about the vasectomy and the suspicious timing of this pregnancy announcement, right after Mark had been served with legal papers. I want to know if she's really pregnant, and if she is, I want to know if Mark could actually be the father. Dave Torres was worth every penny of the $2,000 retainer. Within 48 hours, he called me with a report. Ms. Chen, I've been following the subject, Sienna Miller, for 2 days. I have some interesting information for you. My heart was pounding. Tell me. First, she's not pregnant. I observed her at a bar called the Riverside Tavern last night, drinking margaritas and taking shots with friends. Second, Dave continued, there's a man. His name is Tyler Becker. Age 26. Works in marketing. I have photos of them together at the bar, and they're not acting like casual friends. I also tracked him back to an apartment on 5th Street. It's registered to Sienna Miller. He appears to be living there. I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. Send me everything, I said. Within an hour, my email pinged with Dave's full report. High-resolution photos showed Sienna in a tight black dress, leaning against the bar with a margarita in hand. Other photos showed her kissing Tyler Becker, his hands on her waist. More photos showed them leaving the bar together, getting into her car. The final piece was a copy of Mark's medical records from his vasectomy procedure in 2021. Dave had obtained them through a medical records request service, with proper authorization. The records clearly showed that Mark had undergone a bilateral vasectomy, and that follow-up tests had confirmed it was successful. There was zero chance he could be the father of any baby unless he'd gotten a reversal, which there was no record of. I didn't call Mark. I didn't want to hear his voice. Instead, I sent him a text message with 4 attachments. The first 3 were the photos of Sienna kissing Tyler at the bar, drinking alcohol, and getting into his car. The 4th attachment was a PDF of his own vasectomy records from 2021. I didn't include any message. Just the photos and the document. I watched the delivered notification change to read, almost immediately. 4-5 full minutes. Nothing happened. Then my Ring camera sent me a motion alert. I pulled up the app and watched as Mark's car screeched to a stop in front of our house. He got out, and Sienna was with him. They stood on the sidewalk, and even without audio, I could tell they were screaming at each other. Sienna was pointing at him, her face red and angry. Mark was holding his phone up, probably showing her the photos. Then, in a move that would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic, Sienna yanked off the engagement ring from her finger and threw it at Mark's head. It bounced off his forehead, and he stumbled backward. She got back in the car and drove away, leaving him standing alone on the sidewalk. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Mark's life completely fell apart. Without his office, he tried to work from his mother's house, setting up a makeshift workspace at her kitchen table. But word had spread in our professional community. I didn't have to do anything to damage his reputation. The story spread on its own. Mark Chen, the architect who abandoned his wife the day after her spinal surgery to run off with his intern. In the construction and architecture world, where so much business depends on relationships and trust, that kind of story is poison. His remaining clients quietly moved their projects to other firms. New clients who might have hired him chose someone else. His professional network, which had largely been built through my connections anyway, evaporated. Eleanor's house, where he was staying, went up for sale 3 months later. She couldn't afford the mortgage on her retirement income, and Mark certainly couldn't help her. He ended up taking a job as a junior draftsman at a large corporate architecture firm, the kind of entry-level position he used to mock when he was running his own company. His new boss was Lauren Yong, a woman I had mentored 10 years ago when she was just starting out. The deposition for the civil suit was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in downtown. I had recovered enough from my surgery to attend in person, though I still moved carefully and used a cane. Mark arrived looking tired and defeated. His lawyer was a court-appointed attorney because he couldn't afford to hire anyone better. The deposition lasted 6 hours. Vince systematically went through every bank transfer, every credit card charge, every piece of evidence showing that Mark had been funneling marital funds to Sienna. Mark had no defense. The evidence was overwhelming. But Vince had saved the best for last. "Mr. Chen," he said, pulling out another document. "Are you aware that your wife's company, Chen Holdings LLC, holds the copyright to every architectural design you created while operating under its umbrella?" Mark's face went white. What are you talking about? Vince slid a document across the table. When you established your firm 5 years ago, you did so as a subsidiary of your wife's LLC for tax and liability purposes. According to the operating agreement, all intellectual property created under that structure belongs to the parent company, which belongs entirely to Mrs. Chen. Mark looked at his lawyer in panic, but the lawyer just nodded. It's standard for LLC structures like this. In the end, Mark walked away from our marriage with almost nothing. The house went to me, as did the majority of our savings and investments. The court ordered him to repay the $40,000 he'd given to Sienna, though everyone knew he'd never be able to pay it. He got his clothes, his personal items, and a 2012 Honda Civic that had been his before we got married. I kept everything else, including my dignity and my peace of mind. The judge, a woman in her 60s who had read through all the evidence, made a point of noting Mark's behavior in her final ruling. The timing and manner of the defendant's filing for divorce demonstrates a shocking lack of basic human decency, she wrote. Serving divorce papers to a spouse recovering from major surgery, combined with the systematic transfer of marital funds to support an extramarital affair, represents the kind of behavior this court cannot ignore in its division of assets. I had that quote framed. It hangs in my home office, a reminder that sometimes the system works exactly as it should. Today, I'm standing on a balcony in Santorini, Greece. The sun is setting over the Aegean Sea, painting the white buildings in shades of pink and gold. My back has healed completely. I went through 6 months of physical therapy, slowly building my strength back. I can walk without pain. I can exercise. I can live my life without the constant ache that had dominated my existence for 2 years before the surgery. My phone buzzes with a LinkedIn notification. I glance at it out of habit. Mark Chen has a new position. Junior draftsman at Morrison & Associates Architecture. I feel nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sadness. Just a vague sense of indifference. I close the notification without clicking through. Then I go into my LinkedIn settings and block his profile entirely. I don't need updates on his life. That chapter is closed. I sip my wine, expensive Greek wine that I bought without checking the price, and look out at the horizon. The view is beautiful, and it's mine. All mine.